Oh, hello everyone. You just caught me reading one of my favourite books, All Sewn Up by Chloe Evans. Now, my name is Matt Hastings. I'm Head of Innovation at UKRI, working on the Prospering from the Energy Revolution Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. And we're here to talk about knitting. Many thanks to Carbon Trust for asking me to speak, and a huge thanks to you for listening. Now, I promise to try and make this mildly entertaining, even if you're laughing at my own expense. Hopefully, it will lift the monotony of yet another Zoom monologue. And I've opted not to use any slides, as PowerPoint is sleep-inducing in the wrong hands. Instead, I'd like to weave a story for you. It'll be a bit different. We're going to discuss my mother-in-law and knitting, all in the hope of bringing something so intangible as whole systems optimization into something we can all understand and get behind. And please don't take offense at the little dig. It's just a bit of fun, especially you, mother-in-law. Now, my mother-in-law, in the interest of GDPR, let's call her Margaret, comes from the Highlands of Scotland. Now, Margaret loves to knit. There is one item she prizes above all else: the patchwork quilt. Now, for what it's worth, I hate her patchwork quilts. I'm extremely allergic to wool. I find them itchy and disgusting, but I'm too much of a wimp to tell her what I really think. But because I'm a mega energy nerd, I love thinking about whole systems optimization. So in my quilt hating desperation, I found inspiration for this talk. And this knitting based whole system journey was created. As my kids would do sarcastically, now, the nice thing about a patchwork quilt is that it's a decent representation of a fully integrated whole energy system. Quilts consist of many different pieces. We've got patches, we've got knitting needle, we've got a bunch of threads, and we've got a Margaret, a designer, an architect. But unlike the energy system, Margaret's quilt has two simple objectives. Number one, look pretty. Number two, keep the baby warm. And her quilts fulfill these objectives, well, one at least, to perfection. A quilt meets the needs of its users. But who is the primary user of an integrated and optimized whole energy system? For simplicity, let's just say there are two. Number one, people. Number two, the planet. So, like a brownie with her first penknife, let's talk patches. What makes up the quilt? In the energy system, our patches represent silos, and silos kill systems. We do not have a fully optimized whole system. We don't have a fully integrated whole system. We don't really have a whole system. We have parts of a whole system, but not a beautiful machine. Users of the system are not fully served, and silos are inefficient and expensive. When patches face similar problems, they often choose to solve them in isolation, which costs. Those costs are multiplied across all the patches, and it doesn't take an economist to see the multiplier effect hits consumers and taxpayers in the pocket. Siloed inefficiency is expensive, and some siloed systems can be slow and vulnerable to attack, like a herd of plant-eating dinosaurs or an American gas pipeline. I would argue that there's about 10 major patches in the whole system quilt and about 5 or 6 major threads that try and join things up. There's a massive lack of needles and no Margaret. More on that later. So the patches, it's a non-exhaustive list, but basically we've got networks, suppliers, consumers, markets, etc., and a few major threads that try and join things up. Government policy, regulations, cyber physical infrastructure, financial infrastructure, people and skills. Yes, people and skills are critical national infrastructure. So let's get into the networked patch. We've got patches for DNOs, IDNOs, GDNs, GTOs, ESO, TSO, OFTOs, loads of them. Talking to a network about whole system, you'd be forgiven for thinking whole system only means joining transmission and distribution. But we can do a little bit more here. There's a bunch of patches for Electron, Electrolink, GemServe and the like, the smart DCC, code bodies, etc. But whilst physically connected, networks sometimes appear to be competing more than collaborating. In order to optimize a whole system, we need collaboration, especially across regulated monopolies. Noted, not using collusion. Networks need to think whole system, not just a system of networks. They are an essential part of the bigger picture, but they are not the big picture in themselves. So let's move on to another set of patches, the markets. There's loads of markets: reserves, utilization, ancillary services, balancing market, wholesale market, retail market, carbon market, stock market, national market, local market, the fish market. Okay, well, perhaps not the last one post-Brexit. We can't achieve whole system optimization without a joined up approach to markets. The UK market design is overly complex, hard to access, and some would argue out of date. We can't realize the benefits of whole system optimization without a new market design. Anyone who's tried to stack revenues has experienced the pain when one contract kicks out another. There's value on the table, but the design stops you getting hold of it. Or worse still, one market can turn stuff on, only for another market to turn stuff off. It's inefficient and it costs money. We need a simpler, more integrated energy market that serves the whole system. And then there's a bunch of patches to do with demand, tens and millions of them. Residential, businesses, industrial, commercial, public sector, private sector, vulnerable customers, off gas, on gas, constrained, fixed, variable, responsive, passive, engaged, disengaged. There's loads of patches to do with the demand side. And supply, not just about energy suppliers, but generators, aggregators, asset owners. Whole system in the energy supply business used to mean vertical integration, where upstream, midstream, and downstream businesses would combine to try and form systemic value propositions where downstream customers might benefit from installed flexibility assets that could be traded midstream, which could be balanced against a load book and an upstream generation portfolio. Most suppliers don't really think whole system. Just like the networks, they could benefit from thinking bigger and seeing the role that they play as part of the bigger system as a whole. And then there's different sectors, not just energy, but integrated sectors like water, transport, space, satellites, communications, manufacturing, quantum technology. Many of the same issues arise across these sectors, but there's little integration between them. And some of the solutions to optimizing the energy system will definitely come from outside energy. We need to layer our quilts across sectors. Now let's talk about threads. Common threads exist to join the patches together. These are things like regulation and policy, cyber and physical infrastructure, finance and investment, people and skills. We will bind these using common rules, standards, and interoperability to join the patches together and help them to work efficiently. Think about it like trees in a forest. You know, they cross their roots, they share information to enable collective and dynamic responses to both opportunities and threats. Trees talk to each other in a forest. Our assets do not. Now, our connective tissue is the essence of the whole system. It's the roots, the foundation. It's how we integrate and optimize. And then there's threads to do with government policy. The way policy teams work in a whole system context has to change. It's so hard for policy teams to join together when false drivers like spend profiles or government terms or PR are at play. Policy teams need to work together, and they should have objectives to collaborate for specific whole system outcomes. And those who lobby policy teams need to fight just as hard for the system as they do for themselves and their shareholders. There's a bigger picture at play here. Now, for my part, I am determined to develop an integrated energy innovation funding landscape and join the patches of things like the Ofgem Strategic Innovation Fund, BEIS's Net Zero Innovation Portfolio, and UKRI's energy offering. We're not doing a good enough job and need to make it easier for the best ideas to become the best businesses, because that is what will help optimize the whole system. And then there's regulation. Regulators need to consider the whole system, not just regulating the silo, each patch. That means human beings working collaboratively across different departments. It should just be second nature, but it's not. And what about cyber physical? We are connected by pipes and cables. We are not connected by intelligence. We need to be. On the 12th of May, we launched the Energy Digitalisation Task Force, a key piece of the puzzle. We launched data access initiatives like Icebreaker One's Open Energy, a not-for-profit with a bigger picture, a thread without a patch, an interest not vested. These are the kinds of innovations we need to see. And what about financial infrastructure? No money equals a cold baby. The crowding in of government guarantees with sovereign green bonds, seed investment, angels, venture capital, corporate venture capital, private equity, banks, pension funds, institutional investors, a national infrastructure bank. Critical threads to enable whole system optimization by producing flexible, quilted investment propositions that can work for an integrated system, not just the patches. And what about people and skills? Yes, critical national infrastructure. Academic institutions need to up their game. We need a grad program for the whole system. We need to take the best and the brightest and accelerate their opportunities. We need to teach them to destroy us, to replace the old with the new. Metaphorically speaking, let the kids play with the knives. They are the surgeons of the future. Let's not hold them back. One of the best things about Margaret is that my wife would watch her work. She was a teacher with an apprentice. She learnt to knit. We have to give more opportunities to young people. We have to make the whole energy system the best place to work in the universe. Now let's talk about needles. You can't have a whole system without needles, sharp, pointy, with the ability to attach one piece or patch to another. Whether you're a CEO, an analyst, a graduate, or a grandma, you're part of the solution. Be empowered, be a needle, reach out from your comfort zone of your patch and puncture your neighbors and bring them in close. If we all do that, many hands make light the work. Challenge those who only see the value of your patch and not the value of the quilt. Take a hit. If it means doing the right thing, you'll be rewarded in the long run. And do all of this faster and with more urgency than anything else you've ever done before in your life. The time for theory is over. And yes, this requires a huge cultural shift. Optimizing a whole energy system requires a level of ambition and selflessness that some shareholders, CEOs, and traditionalists hate. Where does the balance lie between being led by shareholders seeking financial returns versus possibly less, I would argue possibly more, profitable, longer-term whole system solutions with broader non-financial benefits? I would argue that the best businesses are the ones that are willing to self-disrupt themselves for the benefits of the people and the planet. Destroying yourself should be on the table if it means what comes after will be better suited for the task. Constructive disruption, self-cannibalization equals long-term financial sustainability. Many corporates have been in share price freefall for many years, trying to hold on to established positions. We need to embrace disruption, not be scared of it. So in conclusion, and to sum up, one of the biggest problems with the lack of whole systems integration and optimization is this: users experience the system as a whole. Businesses only serve their patch. Consumers want whole systems propositions that make their lives easier. We're not satisfying their needs without considering their broader systemic piece, without considering where they sit in the system. That's why it's so bloody frustrating trying to switch suppliers whilst having a smart meter installed, whilst choosing which EV charger to install, whilst trying to find someone who knows about heat pumps or external wall installation, whilst trying to apply for a new connection in a constrained area, or talking to one company about having the pressure regulator changed on your LPG tank to enable another company to change your boiler, or a battery supplier who can trade your flex, or a green hydrogen supplier for the bus network. We don't make it easy for users of the system, and we have to. And there's another huge point. We need a Margaret. We need a system architect, a whole system designer. Who does the knitting? We all do, but we need someone to lead. This role needs to be filled by someone or something. And in my view, leadership of the whole system does not work by committee. So I encourage my friends in BAYS to step up. If government do not lead, the void may be filled with vested interests who have more to gain from maintaining their patch than by being part of something bigger. We need to take the patches of supply, demand, markets, businesses, academia. We need people to act as needles, reach out and pull others in. And we need to weave the threads of policy, regulation, innovation, cyber physical, finance, skills together. And we need to package it all in a way that is a snug fit for the people and the planet. Whole system optimization is about being part of something greater than yourself. And the impacts of benefits of whole system optimization are clear. We can make the UK the best energy system in the world. Our economy, our people, our planet will benefit. The global value for the UK is immense. The export value for the UK is immense. For people, whole systems should mean simpler, faster, cheaper, greener, easier, better products, technologies, processes, and services. We used to say the consumer was king. Now they're queen, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning. The consumer is changing faster than the system, and a whole system is the only way we can be dynamic, real-time, and responsive to the ever-changing needs of the users. For the planet, it can also be regenerative, not just reducing carbon, but putting goodness back in. Like the example of the forests. I realized far too late in the day this was a much better example than the quilts, but so be it. We need organic, dynamic, autonomous, regenerative, secure systems that act more for the whole than the part. So let's get knitting. Let's sew it up. Let's cross our roots. And in Margaret's quilt, All patches work together to keep the baby warm. We need to work together to serve the people and the planet. A rising tide floats all boats. Thank you.